What's up, booktube? Welcome back. My name is Laura if you're new here, and today I'm doing a spoiler-free review of In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. In Deeper Waters is a fairy tale type of fantasy novel that was released, I believe, in April. This one follows our main character named Tal, who is a 16-year-old prince of a kingdom by the sea, but he's, I think, fourth in line, so he has no expectations for the throne, but he does have a secret forbidden magic that nobody can know about because his great-grandfather had the same magic, and he caused a horrible, brutal war that just burned everything to the ground, basically. So Tal has the same magic, so he has spent his life hidden away in the palace under the guise of being a sickly, weak prince. However, when Tal turns 16, he goes on his coming-of-age tour around the kingdoms with his brother. He meets a very strange, very beautiful boy named Athlin who was left to die on a burning ship in the middle of the sea, and they save him, and they have a spark. The main plot of this book kicks off after a few days of the coming-of-age tour when Tal is kidnapped by mercenary pirates who were hired to take him and torture him until he revealed whether he does or does not actually have magic. He knows that his kidnapping was political, but he doesn't know which kingdom kidnapped him, so he has to try and figure out who's behind this, but mainly he has to try and stay alive until somebody can hopefully come and rescue him. There's a whole lot more to this book, but that is the base of it without going into spoilers. So I loved this book. I thought it was so much fun. I gave it a full 5 stars. It was just absolutely amazing. I wasn't the biggest fan of Tal at first. I found that it took a little while for his character to really have a personality, but once he did, like, he was just so sweet. I love him dearly. Tal is just such a sweetheart, but he also knows how to play up that, like, spoiled prince kind of personality that everyone assumes that he would have, which, like, he doesn't really have that, but he knows how to play into it in order to get what he wants, which I really love that. But he's really not a fussy guy. He doesn't really care for all the luxuries that come with being royal. He doesn't mind them, of course, but he doesn't need them. He's very humble and caring. He has a kind heart, and I just thought he was the sweetest thing ever, and he deserves to be protected at all costs. Oh, I love Tal. He is just wonderful. My favorite character, though, is obviously Athlin. If you've read the book, you will probably understand why. I don't want to go into spoilers as to why I love Athlin, but if you know me and you know the kinds of characters that I really enjoy, then you will probably understand why I like Athlin. I don't want to spoil it because it was kind of a plot twist, or at least, like, I didn't know what Athlin's big secret was until I read it, and it was pretty easy to guess, but, like, just in case others haven't guessed it, I don't want to spoil it, so I won't. But Athlin was also just an absolute cinnamon roll. He is a cheeky little shit, and I love that. Like, he knows exactly how to, like, manipulate people, but not in, like, a negative way. Like, he's not doing it for evil. It's just because it's fun. He's just doing it to, like, get what he wants. He's kind of like a trickster character. I loved the relationship between him and Tal, but I think the real stars of the show were the side characters. I love side characters, and I love when they're, like, properly fleshed out, and this book did a great job of that. There were a bunch of side characters who were all really fun and interesting, and I had a great time reading about them. They had their own storylines and romances and problems that I was actually really invested in, and they were actually a pretty important part to the story as well. So it wasn't just about Tal and Athlin and the political parts. There was a lot more to it, and I really enjoyed that. It made it a much more dynamic kind of read. Now, for the atmosphere, you all know I am a sucker for books set at the sea. I love pirate books. I love any kind of, like, mermaids and just, like, sea creatures and everything. I love the ocean. So this was obviously going to be a good book for me, and it definitely was. The atmosphere was amazing. It was weird because, like, the author's writing style isn't that flowery, like, overly descriptive, and yet it still painted this really vivid image in my head of, like, whatever it looked like. I could so perfectly picture these, like, seaside towns and the castle, and especially Athlin's cave. Oh my god, the image in my head of that was this, like, otherworldly, ethereal, glowing cave full of treasures and trinkets, and it was beautiful in my mind. So even though the writing wasn't that descriptive, it was still really, really well done. Everything was, like, described well without being overly done, and, like, I just really enjoyed the writing, especially for the atmosphere and the settings. I loved picturing these, like, little towns by the sea and, like, all the landscapes and everything, and the castle sounded beautiful in my head. I loved every part of it. It was so well done. The plot was also really, really fun. It was a very typical fairy tale plot line. Like, I kind of knew where things were going. It hit all the same beats, but I mean that in, like, the best possible way. It felt like the nostalgic kind of fairy tale that I loved as a child, but with a lot more diversity and a lot less sexism, so I loved that. In this world, you can love who you want and your gender has no say as to how much power you can have. So that was really nice to read. I loved seeing that. I wish that there were more fairy tales like that. The pacing here was also fantastic. It didn't feel like anything dragged on for too long, but things also didn't feel too quick either. It felt like I had the perfect amount of time to sit with every plot point so that everything was like moving along quickly but slow enough that it was still satisfying. So that was also very well done. When it comes to the magic system, I thought it was so much fun and really interesting. I loved all the lore surrounding it. This is my one like almost critique of it, is that I wish that we could have gotten to know the lore a bit more. It does make sense with the story because in the book all the history of magic was lost to the people after the like magical great-grandfather character like destroyed everything. So it makes sense as to why we couldn't learn more about it, because like, the people themselves didn't know. Everything was lost. And like literally burned. All the texts about magic were burned. But I still wish that we could have learned more, because like I am a sucker for that kind of thing. I love really interesting magic systems, and I love when authors like create their own lore surrounding it. So I would have loved to learn more about it, but I do get why it was left out. I think my favorite thing about this book though was the relationships, both romantic and familial. As I mentioned before, these side characters have their own romances, and I thought that they were so well done and just really, really fun to read. They all kind of had their own personalities, and they were again like very important to the story. The absolute best thing though was the relationship between Tal and his siblings. I think he has 4 or 5 siblings, I forget, to be honest, and he's so close with all of them, and just the way that he talks about them to Athlin and seeing him interact with them was so wholesome and so sweet, and I really, really love that about it. They all just love each other so much, and they're so supportive, and they tease each other all the time, and they pull pranks on each other, and reading it just felt like it was just part of their family, and it was really fun. Every sibling is just ride or die for everybody, and I loved it. They're all so loyal to each other, and they just love each other so much, and it was just such a sweet part of the story to see, and a very big part of the story as well. They're very close to each other. It wasn't just like a once in a while kind of thing. It was always. Tal is always talking about his family and how much he loves them, and it was just so sweet. I loved it. Overall though, this book was fantastic. I really have nothing bad to say about it, like at all. I really adored this book. This is exactly the kind of book that I like. Like, it's a fairy tale by the sea with pirates and mermaids and like moral dilemmas, and there's a queer romance in there, and like normalized queer characters. Like, everything was just so perfectly suited to what I love, and it was amazing. So full 5 stars for this one, no questions about it. I adored this book so much, and I hope you give it a shot. If you have read it, let me know. It is a new release, so I don't think too many people have read it yet. In the meantime though, I will just be sitting here gushing about this book forever. But thank you all for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!